What's up everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know, you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. Yes, I'm gonna be talking about a new bike and it's an e-bike. And if you want to skip this video, that's fine by me. But you should stay a little bit because there is some really cool shredding. And if I hadn't told you it's an e-bike, you probably would have never guessed. Now in this video, as always, we're first gonna do some riding. Then I'll be telling you everything there is to know about that new bike and my own bike. And then we'll go back for some more riding. Let's shred. Thanks a lot, buddy.
No worries.
I hope you enjoyed that little shreddit. That was actually only filmed in 3 hours, which is pretty good considering the amount of shots we got. I guess that's one of the nice things about having an e-bike and filming content. As long as it's not too steep, you just go pedal back up, ride back down and get as many shots as quickly as possible. Then obviously when it's super steep and gnarly and you got to put the bike on your back, well, that kind of sucks because even though the bike is light, you still have to hike up. Now I'm gonna tell you about my experience with e-bikes. My first e-bike was in 2018. I was on Cube bike at the time. It had a Bosch motor, and while the bike would get me to the top of the hill more easily, well, riding down kind of sucked. Obviously, that was the first generations of e-bike. That was a long time ago. Things have progressed a ton, but at the time, I just simply would not ride the e-bike that much because I didn't enjoy it riding downhill. And for me, that's the main point of mountain biking, is having fun riding down it. So one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it is because that was very heavy. There was a lot of rattling. I mean, every brand of motor at the time, the battery will rattle, the cable will make noise, the chain will slap around. There was obviously a lot going on and it was still new. So that was really affecting the experience. But the biggest thing for me was the seat post insertion. Because of the battery, because of the motor, a lot of brands were struggling with allowing the seat post to go down enough. And for me, that was a huge deal breaker. And I just simply couldn't ride the bike properly. So fast forward a few years later, e-bikes obviously have progressed a ton. And now I use them basically every day. So e-bikes are not new to Propain either. Propain came out with the Icano, which I rode. It had a Shimano motor, and then they got the Icano 2 CF with the SRAM motor, the Sresh and the Icano 2 alloy with also the Shimano motor, and those are full size, full power e-bikes. So obviously you got a bigger battery, a more powerful e-bike, but the big downside is that it's heavy. And myself, I'm used to ride a dirt bike, which is 100 to 110 kilos. So an e-bike is still a fraction of the weight. And I feel like I've got good riding abilities, which allow me to move a heavy bike pretty more easily than most people. So the weight, even though of course I wanted a lighter bike, was never a huge issue for me. But for a lot of people, a heavy bike is very hard to maneuver, and it really takes away of the fun you have downhill. Jumping a heavy bike can be a lot harder, making a switchback, all of that can really affect your experience, which is why having a SL e-bike, so SL stands for super light, can be a huge advantage. And this is why we're gonna talk about the all new Propain Sresh SL. This video is brought to you by TQ Motor, which is obviously the brand that makes the drive unit, or I guess the motor of this bike. And it is also the reason why Propain was able to make the Sresh SL a super light e-bike. They use the all new TQ HPR 60 motor. So I'm gonna tell you everything about it. There's some pretty cool features, some really good options as well. And then we'll take a deep look at the bike itself, how it rides, and also my own setup, how I adapt some of the components to this bike and the fact that it's a super light e-bike. And then we'll finish by what you want to see, which is another lap of some of my favorite trails in Squamish. Now let's talk about the nerdy stuff, the technical data of the motor. So I've got some notes here, that way I don't mess it up. But this is the TQ HPR 60 motor. 60 stands for 60 Newton meter of torque. It is the evolution from the HPR 50, which obviously had 50 Newton meter of torque. And one of the cool things I learned about the TQ motor is that if you have an e-bike with the previous version, you can actually swap just the drive unit to the new motor, which I think is a really good thing. Now, another cool thing is that when you buy this Propain Sresh SL, you have different options with the battery. That way you can find a bike that answers exactly your needs and what you're gonna do with it. So, first option, that will be to run the small battery. The small battery has 360 watts per hour of capacity, and that adds 1.8 kilo. The drive unit itself is only 1.9 kilo. So picture that. You can have that e-bike with no battery, and that's essentially the equivalent of your Propain tire for only 1.9 kilo more. Then you add the battery, it's an extra 1.8 kilo. So if I'm good at math, for only 3.7 kilo, you have a tire but turned into a lightweight e-bike. Myself, I run the second option, which is the 580 watt per hour battery, and that adds 2.6 kilo on top of the drive unit. Now, if you want to go for a bigger ride, which I don't think I will need based on how much elevation I was able to do and how much riding I was able to do with the 580 battery, you can get an extra 160 watt per hour range extender, and that adds another 0.9 kilos. Now let's talk about the maximum power. When you pedal this bike, the maximum assistance power you can have is an extra 350 watts. 350 watts is actually quite a lot. When you consider that a regular mountain biker that's gonna pedal on an uphill probably average between 150 and 250 watts, an extra 350 is quite a lot. Stay till the end of the video because I actually use the Trailforks app on my watch to check out the time and how much elevation I was doing on an uphill, and I kept an eye at the entire time on the little display. And that little display was giving me information about how much watt the motor was putting out and how much watt I was putting out myself. So that will give you a pretty good idea of how things work. Now let's talk about the display. So it's fairly big. It's well integrated though on the top tube, which makes it very easy to read. Before, I never felt the need to read the display, but this one's got some pretty cool information. So there is one button that you can press to access the different screen. The first screen mine was set up on shows me how much battery is left, which is obviously key, how many watts the motor is pulling out, and how many watts I'm pulling out myself. To be honest, I never knew how many watts I was pulling out myself because I never had the technology to know that, but having this was pretty interesting. When you push yourself, and a lot of people say that e-bikes are for lazy people, well, when you see your watts, I feel that tend to push yourself. So when I pedal this bike, I felt like I worked out more than I would have on my regular bike, just because I could see the number and I wanted to be above a certain number. So pressing the button, I can change the screen to the next one. So this one shows me how many miles is left on this bike. And this is gonna be based obviously of how much I use the motor, how I've been riding since the start of the ride. Then that next screen shows me the speed I'm going to, as well as the RPM. The RPM is the cadence, so how fast I'm pedaling. If you are into road biking and if you're really big into the data, this is an interesting stat to know, so you can adjust how you pedal. Now on the handlebar, I set it up on the left hand side. I've got commands to be able to switch how the motor help me. So there is 3 modes. Obviously the 3 modes show on the display. So you got fast, medium and slow assistance. And there is also a walk mode. So if you stay push on that upper button and you have to push up the bike, which for example I did when I was filming yesterday, this is really helpful and it's easy. I find the button, it's pretty small, so it stays like really discreet on the bike. It doesn't get on the way, and it's only one little cable that follows perfectly the one of the seat post. So you don't have a messy cockpit like some of the e-bikes back in the day used to have. We've talked about the display, the command button. One thing that I need to show you, it's actually the app. So the TQ app is probably the best e-bike app I've used. It is very simple, very user-friendly, and I mentioned there is 3 modes. Obviously you can tune those modes, so you can decide how much power you're gonna get, how much responsiveness, how much assistance. So I'm gonna keep playing with that. I felt like the default setup worked out well for me, but I think it's a really cool thing to have depending on who I'm gonna be riding with. If I'm riding with a friend that's faster than me uphill and that's got a similar e-bike, then I'm gonna boost a little bit the system, and the contrary, I'm gonna slow down a little bit how much power and how much assistance I get if I'm riding with someone that's a little bit weaker than me at pedaling. So let me share my experience with this motor. Well, if you look the video until the end, you will see I'm giving you some feedback as I go, but I'm gonna try to sum it up here. First of all, it's extremely quiet. When you pedal, you really don't really feel any noise, any sound, to the point that when you pass people, they look at you like if you are extremely fit because they probably don't realize you're riding any bike. And when you ride downhill, you absolutely don't hear the motor, there is no chain slap, there is no parasite noise, just a few extra kilos, which I believe actually makes the bike ride even better. You probably saw on the World Cup, some of the riders such as Jackson Goldstone strap weight towards the bottom bracket. Well, here you already have the extra weight with the drive unit and the battery. So riding down was absolutely fantastic, and this definitely feels like you're riding downhill on a regular mountain bike and not a full power heavy e-bike. So this was definitely really cool. You got extra stability, the bike is planted, and yet it's still super playful, very easy to bunny up, very easy to corner, and yeah, this was great. If for whatever reason you run out of battery, which is probably gonna happen because you're gonna have too much fun with this bike and you're gonna go for longer than planned, this bike actually pedals like a regular mountain bike when the bike is off or when you don't have any battery. There is no resistance on the cranks, which means that you can also use this bike as a regular bike. One of the options is actually to remove the battery. For whatever reason you wanted to do an enduro race and there is no e-bike category, or you want to enter the regular category, you can just take off the battery of the bike. So yeah, so far it's been incredible. I've got definitely a few days of shredding on this bike, and I'm gonna put a lot more kilometers into it. Okay, let's quickly go over the riding feel and the geometry of the bike. So as mentioned earlier, this is pretty similar to a Propain tire. It's got a little bit less travel, 150mm on the back, 160 on the front, either 29er or mullet. Mine is a size medium, set up on the mullet position, so I've got a 27.5 rear wheel on the back, and it's got the same Propain platform. It's got a very similar feel to the tire. The geometry is actually very close. It's got the same reach, 455 in full 29er for a medium, or 450 if you're running a mullet. The wheelbase are at 1240mm. Head tube angle in that configuration is 64.1 degree. And one thing that's a little bit longer are the chainstays because of the drive unit and the fact that it's an e-bike, you got more weight. Having longer chainstay is a good idea. So I've been really enjoying that. Seat tube is fairly steep, which makes a really comfortable position. And I found that the bike's got the right amount of flex. It doesn't feel too rigid. It's dynamic, but it still have a little bit of give to it. And yeah, as you probably could tell on the little shreddit, I was feeling good on it. I could hit the same line as I did on my Spindrift or my tire. I really didn't have to hold back because it's an e-bike. I could really ride it at the same pace. I felt extremely surprised by how 150mm of travel was able to suck up some of those impact and compression. The bike has a good amount of support. I didn't experience like any harsh bottom out, and yeah, I was super pleased. Definitely gonna ride that bike a lot more. I can't believe I forgot, I do have a discount code on the Propain website just for the Propain Sresh SL. It's only for the first 3 weeks, but it works worldwide. Use the code REMI free shipping, and that will help you save some money on this all new bike. Now let's look at the components I'm riding. Suspension, I've got the classic DVO Onyx 38 fork. Because it's a 160 fork, I'm riding more air. This got 85 psi, and I am 140 pounds right now. Low speed, high speed compression, I'm set in the middle. The shock is Topaz. I've got 2 volume spacer. Like all my Propain bike with the air shock, I run 2 volume spacer because of the Propain suspension and how much support this bike has. I don't need to have more progressivity. And I've got 175 psi. Now let's have a look at the wheels. I've got my Noble TR38. I could have gone for the 37, which are a little bit lighter, but I had already ordered 38, and it's a bit heavier, it's a bit more rigid, which actually works well on the e-bike. Those wheels are custom built in Cumberland, BC, and they are laced on a set of Project 321 G3 hubs. It's another Canadian company. They've got 288 points of engagement, so it's really quick. The maintenance of those has been absolutely zero. There is nothing to do. They spin really well. There is some really cool mechanism onto those hubs. I really encourage you to check them out. And if you want a set of Noble wheels, make sure you check out the link down below, because I've got a discount code, REMI Noble 10, and you won't be disappointed. Now let's move to actually the tires, since we are talking about the wheels. Classic Maxxis DHR2 on the back, Asaga on the front. My DHR2 on the back is a downhill casing for extra support and reliability, especially since I'm gonna be riding this bike at places that are a bit further. It's nice to have, for peace of mind, a downhill casing, but on the front, a double down is enough for me. In terms of PSI, I run 24 on the back, 22 on the front, whereas on my full power e-bike, I usually run 26 on the back, 24 on the front, because the bike is heavier. Let's move to the cockpit. One thing that's really interesting is that lately I've been swapping a lot of my 1UP carbon bars to the new V2 in 50mm rise. That bike has got a 110mm head tube on the size medium. With a 160 fork, I felt like I needed to be a little bit higher, so the 50 is super nice. It's paired with a 35mm stem and a 180 V3 dropper post. And you can find all those products on Jenson USA. When you use my links to Jenson, there's a link down below, by the way, that does support the channel. They've been a great partner of mine, so thanks so much for that. We've got the Ergon GDH grip, absolutely amazing with the Ergon SM Enduro. Moving on to the brake, the classic Ace Dominion A4 Purple Edition. Those brakes are incredible, such a light feeling, they're very powerful, great modulation, super reliable. I've got the sintered brake pads, 200mm disc. Talking about purple, I've got the Time Special 10, purple pedal match really well. I've got also a KMC SL 12-speed chain, light, super reliable. I've actually never broke a KMC chain, and I've been with KMC for I think 8 years. So especially on any bike, since you got an extra 350 watts, it's nice to have a really strong chain. So I encourage you checking them out. For transmission, I've got the classic Shimano XT 12-speed. Simple, it works well, it's reliable, and I buy it on Jenson. Check out the link down below once again. We've got a Mudhugger Evo Long. I never go anywhere without it. What else do we have? We've got a Topic Ninja cage with a 11 function tool. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I forgot. I always forget, but every single bike I have is ride wrapped. You can get a ride wrap for this bike, even though it has just come out. Ride Wrap already has it on their website, so you can make sure your bike is protected. It makes the bike easier to clean and it holds its value better. Yeah, I think that's about it. Now let's just finish with a quick thing before we go riding. Weight. So Propain sells different options, but the first option starts around 18 kilo with a smaller battery. Mine is around 20.5 kilo as it is, but obviously I've got a burly setup with the wheels, with the tires. I've got the bottle cage, so I've got a bunch of accessories. But yeah, you can get that bike as low as 18 kilo something. And in terms of pricing, this bike starts at 5,999 euros or 6,200 US dollars. So there's obviously different options, and as always on Propain you can customize, so you can change part as you want, which is awesome. I think that's everything. Now let's go and shred. So, according to Trailforks, 512 meters of elevation, 27 minutes something, and only 71% of battery. So I assume I can be doing easily more than 1500 meters of elevation. I was on the quick mode. As you can tell, I'm out of breath. That's because I pedal pretty quick for myself. Okay, now let's have a fun lap on the Sresh SL. It's only my second day on it. Bike is super playful. Whew. It really doesn't feel like a e-bike. Definitely feels closer than a regular bike when you're riding downhill. I'm so worried about skinnies. And that's where the e-bike is nice. It's those tiny climbs. Yo. The bike is super playful. So easy to turn. Even on those tight corners. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I really like the rear end of the bike. A little bit longer than my spin drift, but it puts me like really stable and centered into the corners. Give me extra confidence. 50mm rise bar definitely works well for me with a 160 fork. That puts me like high enough for my liking and for this type of terrain where it's actually quite steep. Okay, part 2. So nice to turn. Nice. So far I've got 60% battery left. That little screen is actually super easy to read as you pedal. And actually on this display, right there is a watt that the motor puts out. And right here is my own watts. And I don't know how I feel about it because it's a little bit depressing to see such a low number. But I think on the climb, I probably average at 220 or 250 watts. According to this, I can double check everything, but it will be interesting to see on the same loop how much power I put on the Sresh SL versus a regular mountain bike, because I bet I pedal at least as hard on this as I do pedal on my Taille or on my speed drift. And then you can switch the screen. So I have about 10 miles left. But the fun thing is that if I fully run out of battery, this pedals like a regular bike, except that it's a few kilo heavier. The feeling when you pedal is really the same. And right there is the speed I'm currently going, as well as the RPM. I feel like some people will really appreciate seeing the RPM, especially if you're a road biker or you're really big into the stats. Okay, back onto some shredding. Glory all. Cheers story for the trail. Yeah, it's pretty cool how you can ride an e-bike these days. 6-7 years ago, you had to ride slow, you couldn't push. Whereas now you ride this literally as fast as a regular bike. Okay, on to Cowboy Town. Thank you to Orion Blaze for the rebuild. This is super fun. Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Epic. The bike is so quiet. There's no chain slap, there's no rattling, nothing. On to load on. Only 150 of travel on the bike, but feels more capable than this. So right now I'm pulling out about 400 watts and the bike's 375. I'm gonna finish by your mom. Wow, I'm pumped. So, I just finished my ride. I've got 54% of battery left, and I have done almost 800 meters of elevation, 15.8 kilometers in less than 1 hour. Now I'm gonna charge the bike and I'll go for another lap tomorrow. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's an e-bike, but honestly, I had a ton of fun riding it. It's not because Propain is asking me to ride an e-bike and to promote it that I do. It's because this is truly the bike that I enjoy riding. It gets me out more often than if I didn't have an e-bike, and I'm sure it will for you too as well. So, if you enjoyed the video, I really appreciate you subscribing, leave me a like and a comment. I'll do my best to check out all those comments and reply to them. And as always, to support the channel, simply check out the links down below. You can save some money with all those codes, and that does help me a little bit. So thank you so much for that. See you next week.